Hey everyone, wanted to talk to you today about mulch volcanoes and why you should avoid them. In this picture here, you will see that what might look normal to most people, but hopefully by the end of this video, you will realize is actually excessive mulch, what we're calling a mulch volcano, because the mulch piles up too high around the bark, around the trunk of the tree, and can cause a lot of problems. So mulch can be a good thing. If you do it the right way, it can help moderate extreme temperatures, so it can be warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer. It can help reduce weeds, obviously, because it chokes them out so they don't get sunlight. It can help with water retention, because mulch will help the water to not evaporate, and so therefore have a healthier tree. It can also help increase it can help reduce compaction, and so therefore it will have healthier roots. If you have a good mulching situation, you will have unhealthy roots if you have improper mulching. And then obviously it can improve aesthetics, and so that's why most people probably put mulches to try to make it look good. But we want to talk about, just because something might look normal or good, is it actually good? Because it can be bad. Mulch can be bad when it causes the tree to have decay on the bark because it stays too wet, and then you have insect issues, disease issues, and you call weed warriors because you can't figure out what's wrong with my tree, and it looks like there's these insects harming my tree. But that turns out to be a secondary issue, and the primary issue oftentimes, and I would say more often than not, has to do with the way that the tree is either planted or the mulch is applied around the tree. And so this is a video to try to help avoid some of those insect and disease issues by having healthy trees. You can also get or cause your roots to girdle or wrap around the tree and suffocate the tree, and that's bad for many reasons, eventually resulting with the death of the tree. And because a lot of times when something is happening in a way to a tree that it shouldn't be happening, you may not know immediately. So your mulch right now, you might think it's fine because your tree is fine, but with trees, what's happening this year is most often because of what was happening last year, or maybe even 2 or 3 years ago. Trees take a long time to have results, to see the results of how the tree was treated. And so this tree right here, the mulch was piled too high. You can see the semblances of a volcano there, resulted in the bark staying too wet, therefore the integrity being sacrificed, and eventually fell over because of decay. It's an extreme example, but it is something that can happen. We want to protect this outer layer of cells. I'm sorry, not the outer layer, but the layer of cells that's just inside the bark, and it's referred to as the phloem and the xylem. And that's the transport system inside the tree. That's where the nutrients are carried from the leaves when you have photosynthesis with sunlight, and they're sent down through this layer, the phloem, down to the roots to feed the roots, and the roots soak up the water to send back up to the leaves, and they help each other. So we really want to protect that layer. We don't want that layer to get decay. That's why a beaver can kill a tree, is because it gets that layer, it chews all of it off, and ends up killing the tree, because this layer is so important. And so this is an example of mulching the right way, showing that we don't have the mulch all the way up next to the base of the tree. No matter how much mulch you apply, even if you end up, you're not sure how high. No, my hand was going too high right there, but whether too high is there. The point is, keep it off of the trunk of the tree. A very important point there to consider when you're applying mulch. Right here we have an example where way too much mulch was applied. You can't even see the root flares. You're supposed to be able to see these root flares when it's planted correctly and mulched correctly. And they are completely covered, and so a company had to come in and remove the mulch so that bark would not stay too wet. A second issue, not only the first issue being wet bark or decay, the second issue we want to avoid is root girdling. And this picture is an extreme example, but this is what it typically looks like, where when it's buried too deeply in mulch, the roots will start growing around the tree and end up suffocating the tree. And when you suffocate this outer layer where the phloem and the xylem is, it just messes up the whole system of the plant. And so those root flares I referred to earlier, you can see here there is no flaring. The mulch was all the way up to where this tree is straight up and down, but we want the mulch, once the tree starts flaring down, that's where the mulch needs to be up to, not up to where the tree is going straight, but we want to expose those root flares, because if you don't, what's going to happen is you're going to get these other roots that are going to start growing and eventually suffocate the tree. Just another example of what that can look like once you remove the dirt or remove the mulch. You can see the root flares down here. They were completely covered, and that's not a good thing. Some more root girdling there. Some mulch that was applied way too thickly, resulting in root girdling. And so what do we want mulching to look like? This is what we want it to look like. We want to see not thick, not volcanoes, just enough to keep the weeds out, keep the water in, keep the extreme temperatures out, and the tree's going to be happy as opposed to sad. So these are just some more realistic examples of what that looks like, of not having a mulch volcano. You can see the flares on this tree really good, which is why I chose that picture. And then this last one I chose pine straw, because pine straw, you might think, hey, why do you put pine straw on so thick? And that's just simply because there's more air between the pine needles, and so you don't get root girdling or cell decay when you have pine straw. Thick pine straw is actually necessary because there is so much air between the needles. And so you just want to do 2 or 3, maybe 4 inches of bark mulch, and obviously closer to 6, maybe even 8 inches of pine straw mulch. And so hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully that saves some trees, and hopefully, well, if you have any questions, let us know. And thank you for watching this video.